Hello and welcome back to another episode of College Football UK. It has been a bit of a tough week this week. I have been under the weather a little bit, but nothing will stop me from coming on here and talking college football with this absolutely stunning gentleman in Egg. How are you, sir?
I'm very well, thank you, Fletch. How are you doing? Other than your soldiering on through man flu.
Absolutely. Do you know what? Other than that, absolutely fine. I've had a lovely week. I've had a generally lovely week with my daughter. And football is. I watched Lions football last night for the first time since January officially 28th, because it would have started. It started first thing in the morning over here on January 28th. So I'm happy, man. I'm happy. How about you?
I'm good. We're a week closer to college football, a week closer to Michigan being back. Um, and this weekend for me personally as well, my niche American sport NASCAR is also back. So I'm living the dream at the minute.
I bet you are. I bet you are. So you mentioned a little college football team there specifically. Now they're going to be, if you can't tell by your t-shirt and by the hoodie that I've worn on a couple of occasions this week, that little college in terms of Michigan, the national champions of the college football, they will be the subject of our episode today. And before we get into that, we will start to get into the news, just a little bit of news from this week. So in my favourite bit of news, by the way, and this has made my week, Florida International University have reached an agreement to rename their stadium and call it the Pitbull Stadium after reaching an agreement with the multi-Grammy award-winning artist Pitbull. It's amazing.
I was slightly floored when Snoop Dogg was sponsoring a bowl game, and it just feels like Pitbull's just gone. All right, then hold my pint. I'm
Yeah,
just gonna have an entire stadium.
exactly. But a couple of the things, like the bit of the agreement was, I guess, released onto social media this week. My favourite part of it all was that as part of the agreement, Pitbull himself will now be known as the official entrepreneur of FIU Athletics, which I thought was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. But also in that was that he gets 10 usages of the stadium every year. Their base rental fee, which if anyone wants to use the stadium, obviously they will have to pay, will be waived. But in all of those 10 usages he will get of the stadium, FIU students will get discounted tickets, which I think is great, and a really nice move from him on that one. But in slightly less brilliant news, I guess, Jim Harbaugh, the current LA Chargers head coach and only ever so slightly just the head coach of the Michigan Wolverines, has been handed a 1-year suspension and a 4-year show clause for repeated violations of recruiting. We'll get into that a little bit later on, so hold your horses on that one for the moment, Egg. We will get into more detail on that.
Yeah.
In other news, College Football 25 has been handed its first official major update. Now, I've been playing this quite a bit, so I don't know how much of this you've played, but it means
No.
a lot to me that we're finally getting an update. Some of the things that are being changed are there are 8 new shotgun formations added to a total of 35 teams. Turning and logic enhancements to pursuit angles. There are certain other things like reduced frequency of broken tackles for trailing defenders. Now, that was the worst thing ever. It was a case of, like, if you missed a tackle anywhere, end of play, that's done. It's a touchdown. End of story, you've lost. That seems to be getting a bit of a fix. And there are a variety of other things, mostly to do with the AI, etc. But there are a lot of like little bug fixes, little gameplay fixes that have been really bugging us for the last couple of weeks, which is really nice. Just in time for Madden to come out as well. So, good timing. In other news, I guess as well, just to kind of finish off, Coastal Carolina have moved their camp to NC State due to the tropical storm. Now, I know you brought this up to me earlier, Egg. And you mentioned a couple of bits about Coastal Carolina and why this is important to them to do so.
Yeah, apparently their campus is only 10 miles away from the beach as well, so they're right on the coast, obviously, as I'm guessing as the name suggests. So I think it's quite nice to kind of see a big in-state rival kind of looking after a slightly smaller school and taking them in and like NC State and I suppose North Carolina could just tell them to stuff it and to sit it out and ride it out, but they've not. They've taken them in. Obviously, there's not really much threat to a big ACC school from a Sunbelt school, but it's still nice to kind of see that, especially in a world of college football where everyone's kind of looking out for themselves. So that really caught my eye as well when I saw that in the news.
Yeah, shout out to NC State. Yeah. Absolute massive shout out to NC State. And just in the last couple of bits, the FSU Georgia Tech game, which is due to be played in Dublin as of the drop of this episode, just less than 2 weeks, is now officially sold out. All 47,000 tickets have gone. And we mentioned it before on the podcast. I myself, Nick and Gary will all be there in Dublin we're still deciding on what the sign's going to say, but we will be stood behind Pat McAfee and Nick Saban holding some sort of sign. What that will say, I don't know. But look out for a weird sign that will be on College Football Game Day, because we'll be holding it. And finally, we are changing our schedule in the coming couple of weeks. So next week, as most of you know by now, we record on a Friday night, we drop on a Sunday morning. We'll be moving both of those days. So we will be recording on a Wednesday night and dropping on a Thursday morning, because now we've got into the swing of things and we're all running a lot better. There are a lot less mistakes for me to have to edit out, meaning my edit gets done a lot quicker and can be out a bit quicker, and it means we get more time for the week for you to listen to our college football predictions. And we need to change because, well, no one wants to hear us predict college football games after they've just been played, or review college football games that are over a week old.
It's still slightly embarrassing when you predict a game after it's happened and you still get the prediction wrong. I've done that a few times. But yeah, no, I'm excited. We're a week closer, as I've said, to college football starting. I love this time of year. For me personally, I start now with college football and then I go all the way through till the first weekend of April with college basketball. So this is like my lead up to Christmas. If I could get an advent calendar and open a door every day, it had like a different face of Jim Harbaugh and then Dusty May, something Michigan related all the way through. That would suit me right down to the ground.
Love it. I reckon, right, nobody take that. We're copywriting it right here, right now. That's copyrighted for you. Only you can do that. No one can run away and steal that idea, because obviously we get that many listeners that they're all just rushing now to go and take this idea, obviously. But with that, we're going to start recording, like I say, on Wednesday nights, dropping on Thursday mornings. The first in that series, our first Wednesday night recording will be Wednesday the 21st, dropping first thing in the morning on Thursday the 22nd of August. That will be obviously a mega preview for Florida State and Georgia Tech as we look towards week 0, and maybe a couple of the other games going on in week 0. But after that, we will have, well, we'll see how long those episodes go on for, but we'll try and cover as much college football as we can in each of those episodes, review and preview, and get you ready for the week ahead. Other than that, is there anything else on your agenda this week for news?
No, back to Pitbull though. Back into my NASCAR link. He does own a NASCAR team and a MotoGP team actually as well. So he's not just owning stadiums now. He owns a major share in Trackhouse. So if anybody out there who wants more Pitbull information, that's your lot.
Mr. Worldwide indeed.
Mr. Worldwide.
So, as I mentioned, we're going to talk about Michigan today. But just because Gary's not here, and Nick's not here, and Sam's not here, don't mean you get away with this one either. I've got a nice little trivia question for you today here. So it's hopefully a nice little easy one for you. And topical, as given what's happening, and as of the release of this episode, sorry, I'll try that again in English. The Olympics closing ceremony is tonight.
Yeah.
So, your trivia question for the week is, which college in the US has sent the most Olympic athletes?
So they would be for obviously non-football. So I'm trying to think. So it could be Michigan have got a couple in the basketball. So is it Michigan?
Quite a few. It's not Michigan.
So it's I want to say Stanford because they've got quite a lot of sports that are like lower down, but like non-varsity sports. But I don't think it's going to be them. So Bama,
It's not Stanford.
Bama.
Nope.
Alabama have got 2 GB athletes playing in the Paralympic basketball. So shout out to them as well.
Sorry.
So it's not Bama. What conference are they in? Can I ask that?
Now the Big Ten.
Now, so it's either going to be
No.
Washington, UCLA, USC, Oregon, or Oregon.
It is one of those four.
It's Oregon.
It's not Oregon.
Okay, then I think you're going to have to tell me because I've obviously named the 4 schools that have joined the Big Ten.
It's USC.
That's surprising in fairness, but then I suppose LA is a bit of a... Yeah.
So as per... Well, where did I get this? As per multiple of the US publications that I've read this week, USC have sent 59 athletes to the Olympics.
Oh, I suppose that wouldn't just be on Team USA, would it? I've just thought, for some reason, I just thought it'd be Team USA you were talking about.
No, but I tell you what has been fun over the last week, watching some of the Eurosport coverage, because I've been lucky enough to steal my mother's Discovery Plus. That a lot of the cutscenes and when they're doing stories about certain athletes, and you'll see a Texas Longhorns t-shirt, or a Florida Gators was one this morning for me while I was watching, and all these different colleges, and going, oh, no way. That's been quite fun.
There's a lot. I saw someone the other day watching the basketball had a college jersey on for one of the like non-American nations. I can't remember who it was, but it was like a mid-major team as well. And I was like, that's really random for someone who's just gone to Paris with that.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you like a quiz question back? Because I feel like you torture us most weeks now, or me last week and this week. So.
Go on then. I don't like this, but go on.
What do Oklahoma State, Minnesota, and the Rice Owls all have in common?
Have they all gone from, say, D2 to D1?
No. They all share one stat.
Change the mascot at some point.
No, but lots of teams have done that. Only these 3 teams have done it.
Right.
Currently hold this record, I think is the way I should have worded it.
I have no idea.
They're all unbeaten against Alabama.
Well, I could have gone through every stat I could have ever thought of, and that would be last on my list.
And Rice are the only team in college football to have beaten Alabama more than once. They're unbeaten and they're 3-0 against them. And there's no Alabama-Rice game scheduled for, well, ever. I think Oklahoma State play Alabama back home and home in the next couple of years, so that stat could change. Yeah, but that was my stat I discovered the other day. Didn't know that. So, yeah.
That is a very, very brilliant stat.
Yeah. Shout out to the Rice Owls.
All 3 of those teams now will stay on schedule watch for when that will probably change. So, Thank you for that one.
You're very welcome.
I don't like being on the other side of it. It's not nice. It doesn't mean I'm going to stop doing it, by the way. But I don't like being on the other side of it. I realise it's not nice. So, as mentioned before, Harbaugh has been in a lot of trouble this week. The NCAA have slapped him on the wrist, shall we say, for violations in recruiting. Now, if you're new to college football, this is a very interesting storyline. If you are involved with a team that does not like Michigan, this is very, very interesting. But this is very, very interesting in many, many different ways, because obviously, number 1, this involves the national champions. Number 2, this involves a brand new back again in the NFL head coach. And the implications of this can be quite large, depending on how this plays out or continues to play out. Michigan have also been in a lot of trouble for something else, and you may have heard of sign stealing, etc., and noticed that Jim Harbaugh was suspended for most of the season last season. These are completely separate incidents that Michigan are being in a lot of trouble for. So we'll start with, and again, I'm very sorry if I'm setting this up badly, brain fog, cloud, all of that this week. Start us off, please, Egg, and just can you give us a little bit of an introduction to what the sign stealing side of things is?
So, trying to stay completely unbiased, which is very difficult with how much I love Michigan. The sign stealing, I was going to say fiasco, but that's not the right one. The sign stealing allegations came about midway through last season. It's alleged that Connor Stallions, who was an assistant coach or a staffer at Michigan, had been stealing signs from other college teams. They don't have the in-piece headset in college football because it gives the bigger schools an advantage over the smaller schools. So it's kind of done for the right reason. There was pictures of him allegedly on the sideline of one of the other Michigan teams or one of the other universities in the state of Michigan. And there was alleged he'd bought tickets to some ridiculous amount of games over many years. Like he'd written a manifesto and all this sort of stuff. As yet, it's all kind of been not proven, but there seems to be more allegations coming out as time goes on. The flip side of this is that it's kind of also every team has been stealing signs. It's been known that's been happening for years. Part of the enjoyment of college sports over the years has been teams kind of operating in that grey area, kind of getting away with it, and the one-upmanship and the NCAA have kind of started to crack down on lots of things. That's kind of the short of it, really. Yeah, that was kind of it. It was said to try and derail our season last year, and it didn't really affect anything. But you'll see teams now when they're playing Michigan, instead of just holding signs up, you'll see players running to the sideline to get their play called, which we had for basically our last 6 games anyway. So
yeah, the name Connor Stallions, if you don't know it already, you should probably know it very soon because there's a documentary coming up on Netflix, which I would genuinely, because to hear it from his perspective is going to be a very, very interesting piece. Because I don't think anybody's heard his side of this story yet.
No, I've not seen anything.
No, so that's going to be a very interesting one because we've obviously heard the NCAA side of it. We haven't stopped hearing about how Ohio State think about it and Michigan State. But we haven't heard from Connor Stallions. And that's, like I said, that's going to be an extremely interesting viewpoint to hear from. But as you've mentioned, sign stealing seemed to be a thing that was going on behind closed doors for quite a while, with more than just Michigan.
Yeah, it's been happening under the table for years. It's not difficult. The signs were shown on ESPN and on the live TV streams quite regularly. You just need to look at the sign and see the play that the team runs. It's not exactly rocket science, but it's kind of Michigan kind of allegedly turbocharged it. Instead of just sending someone to a game, they were on the side. Alleged Connor Stallions was on the sideline, was taking pictures, was at games, completely was filming the entire sideline of, I think it was Minnesota. Apologies if it wasn't Minnesota. That he was attending Purdue games. He was, all this and that, and it's probably just the fact that Michigan were a bit careless, and it was done on an industrial scale, and other schools have probably done it slightly underhand or don't have the staff or the ability. Whether how deep it goes into Michigan, we don't know, obviously.
So if you are watching this episode on YouTube and you're looking away, look now, because I'm going to put something on your screen. And I'm very sorry. Don't judge me for the amount of tabs I have open, but there is a picture of Connor Stallions allegedly at a CMU game, that's Central Michigan, in disguise, which I found hilarious, the whole disguise thing. It made me think of, you know, in Family Guy, where Peter wanted the free sample and then walked away and then came back and it was the mustache, whatnot. And then
It's
about
like
six Peters pass and the guy goes, hang on, you, it's a free sample, take as many as you want. And then all six of them are stood there, and it is actually six different people who will all look exactly like Peter, but with slightly different features. Brilliant.
I quite like it. It's a man wearing sunglasses and a baseball cap stood on a college football sideline. Like it's
With
very,
a goatee.
yeah, with a goatee. You don't see that a lot on the side of like the sidelines of college football, really. I don't.
No.
It puzzles me really how people didn't know it was him. Anybody who's not watching on YouTube, could you hear? I hope you can hear the sarcasm in my voice there.
Yeah. And look, just looking at him like, oh, it's sunglasses guy. Yeah, I know you, sunglasses guy. How do you not know? Like, not that I'm trying, again, I want to keep this as unbiased and whatnot as possible, but it does seem a little off to me that he was clearly able to get into so many stadiums, to so many games, and on the sideline for a whole game, and nobody know that, okay, that guy's not with us. You would have thought somebody would have noticed.
Well, I think that it's also on the flip side that Michigan aren't getting, and Colistanians actually, if that is him, isn't getting enough credit. He's trying to build up schools that are further down the food chain. Other schools within the glorious state of Michigan. He's taken probably time out of his own busy schedule to go stand on the sideline and help those guys. And what happens? He just gets slaughtered for it, and I think that's horrible. Any Ohio State fan out there or Michigan State fan out there who's been saying horrible things about college stallions, that man is giving up free time to try and better the sport in college football. So be ashamed of yourself. I tried so hard to keep a straight face there.
So the comments on this one are going to be fun.
Yeah.
Really fun. Come on, bring him. Yeah,
in all seriousness, last season for Michigan was a little bit of a roller coaster. We had at one point before the season started, we had a staff fired for IT breaches. We had this. We had Jim Harbaugh being suspended on numerous occasions. In basketball, the coach didn't start the season for medical reasons, then punched the strength and conditioning coach. Then we fired him. Then we won a national championship in football. Ice hockey made it to the Frozen Four, and our men's lacrosse won the Big Ten, and the women made it to the NCAA tournament for the first time in decades. Like, I just want a normal season this year. I just want a normal 12 months in the world of Michigan athletics.
I feel like that's not going to happen for a while. And speaking of why we can't even get a normal season this season, we'll move on to the current breaches that would be that is a lot of trouble. Oh, sorry, before we do actually, what were, to let everybody know, the punishments for the sign stealing? Because per the NCAA, a head coach is responsible for the actions of the team and his staff.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the responsibility would fall on him, and some of it will fall on the school for failing to control their staff as well. But the buck stopped with Harbaugh, and it was all felt to have been part of a culture that Harbaugh had created and fostered within Michigan. And actually, to add to this as well, some of the things that have been being spoken about is that Sharon Moore, the new Michigan head coach, who's taken over from Harbaugh, had something to do with it. There were deleted text messages with Connor Stallions, etc., etc. So it's believed to be that not only did Connor Stallions do it, but one, the buck stops with Harbaugh. That was his member of staff that he didn't control, but also it might have been, or is considered to have been, a much deeper problem or a much more widespread problem within Michigan as originally thought. So what kind of happened out of that? Because surely, well, yeah, what was the outcome?
Jim Harbaugh voluntarily didn't coach Michigan's last 3 or 4 season games. Didn't coach in the Big Ten championship. And from memory, he was there for Bama. He was there for the playoffs. So he voluntarily didn't coach on the sideline, which means Jerome Moore did coach the team against Penn State. Maryland, I think,
Ohio State.
Ohio State. So he's still got more wins over Ohio State than Ryan Day's got over us. I think also it's very telling that athletic director Ward Manuel hasn't resigned and hasn't really said anything as well. It's normally at this point, and if there's smoke and there is going to be findings that it's going to be true, an athletic director at a university normally comes out or has normally resigned and lost their job. There's no sign of that happening at Michigan.
Pun intended or not there?
Pardon?
Pun intended or not there?
There's no sign of it. No sign of it. No sign of it. No pun intended. That's normally. I think that did happen at Louisville, and it's happened at a lot of other universities as well. And I think it did happen when there was the whole NIT thing in the early '90s with the basketball at Michigan. But it all seems very quiet on his front, and he's been very supportive of. Was very supportive of Jim Harbaugh and said it was the correct decision to do. And he seems to be incredibly supportive of Jerome Moore as well. If any allegations have come up against him, which I think. Yeah. If there was going to be findings that was going to prove that this was happening, that War Manual's not going to back him. He's not going to give up his multi-million-pound job for that. So I think that's very telling as well. Normally at a university, if an athletic director is saying stuff, then it's, oh.
Look what this man will do just to not answer a trivia question. Welcome,
I was mincing fish. There's a long story there, but I spent most of the last hour and a half mincing fish for the dogs. Fun.
Lovely. How are you, sir?
Doing all right, boys. Doing all right. Good to see you. How you doing, Nick?
I'm very well, thank you.
So just to fill you in there, Gary, on where we're at right now, is we've gone through the news. We've done the trivia question, as you've so lovingly decided to abstain from. And we've just gone through...
Give it to me then. Come on, give it to me then.
Go on, shall we do it again? And actually, we had 2 this week, because Eggs brought his own.
Oh, so... double whammies.
Okay, so we'll go through it again for Gary. So my one was, which college has sent the most athletes to the Olympics this year?
Stanford.
It was not Stanford.
Oh, they've done well in the swimming, though.
Well, Stanford is Katie Ledecky. She's from Stanford. So
I did like on NCAA the ACC again. Look, we'd be winning the medal table, and someone kind of pointed out, it's like, yeah, but not if you used last year's set up the ACC. You can't just be claiming it just because they've moved to the ACC now.
That was a tweet I saw this week, though, when Katie Ledecky was smashing it, and someone went, is the ACC really trying to claim Katie Ledecky's wins? Really?
Yeah, they really are. Yeah.
But yeah, so which one sent the most? And it was, I'd say, wasn't Stanford.
Oregon? Ooh. Would it be no?
Getting closer.
It's Oregon State, is it?
No. But you're in the right conference.
I'm in the right conference now, am I? Oh, okay. Now I'm in the right conference, or was in the right conference.
You are now in the right... Well,
now in the right...
No, sorry. Before you went to Oregon State, you were in the right conference.
Right, so Oregon.
With Oregon.
It's not your lot, is it?
Nope.
Washington? No. trying to think where's a big sporting. That's why I think in Oregon and Nike and everything else. I thought it
So-
might have been them.
I'll give you one more clue. You were I'll kind of give you you were double right, I guess, or double close with Oregon, because not only are they in the Big Ten, but they also moved over to the Big Ten this year.
I didn't even hear that. It broke up completely, so the clue was lost on me, unfortunately. So who was it? In Washington, or was it?
No, so not only are they in the Big Ten, but they also joined the Big Ten this year, just like Oregon.
Try and remember who joined the Big Ten now. Bugger. Oregon, Washington. Who else did they take over with them? Did they take USC? Is it USC? They didn't go to the Big Ten.
It is USC.
It is USC. Ah.
59 athletes.
Wow. That's a lot.
Have gone. An egg. Do you want to jot this one on, Gary?
I've just found out that we've got a Team GB athlete who's at the University of Michigan. So that's what I was doing when I was typing away. I was interested to see how many athletes we had from Michigan.
Yeah, she's a British. Is it the British American? She's a 400-meter runner. Cindy
Sember. Yeah, it doesn't actually say on the Michigan website.
When is Christmas? Dad joke, isn't it?
So my question was: Oklahoma State, Minnesota, and Rice all share one stat. One, how did I word it? Was stat one? They've all got one thing in common, basically.
Rice, Minnesota.
Yeah, the Rice Owls, Minnesota Golden Gophers, and the Ohio State Cowboys are all linked through one fact.
They all have Super Bowl MVP alumni.
No, that was quite a good guess, in fairness, but no, it's not that. I'll tell you because we could be here all night. They are all unbeaten against Alabama.
Oh, well, there you go. I thought,
Rice have played Alabama 3 times and are unbeaten. They're the only team in college football to be unbeaten more than once against Alabama.
Nice.
There is 11 schools, but most of them aren't actually in existence anymore.
One of those. Excellent. That's a good one. I thought I quite like my guess though. I was. Anyway,
that was quite a good guess.
Apologies for being late.
That could be correct, but yeah.
So, with that in mind, we'll get we've had double the trivia this week.
Hopefully, everyone else got the answers right the second
time.
Where
we were also at was we've just kind of gone through the sign stealing allegations and all the stuff that's come through and gone on around the sign stealing. But now we are going on to the other allegations put against Michigan and the other trouble that Michigan and Jim Harbaugh is in. And this is recruitment violations. And as mentioned before, these are 2 completely separate incidents that will be, as and when, if they are punished on completely separate investigations, completely separate incidents. So, again, Egg, do you want to give us a little bit of a preview into what exactly has gone on with the recruiting violations?
It's all a bit murky. It seems to just boil down to that Jim Harbaugh bought to recruit a cheeseburger. I think that's kind of
the short whole and long meeting they had during COVID, restaurant, and it was that whole thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Essentially, there are rules around recruiting and what universities can and can't do. You're not allowed to buy them gifts. Whether a cheeseburger actually counts as a gift, I think is probably up in the air. But Jim Harbaugh is alleged to have recruiting violations. Again, this is probably something that all schools do. It's just that Jim Harbaugh was pretty careless. Why a cheeseburger would sway someone to come to the University of Michigan, one of the finest institutions in the world, and say, go to, I don't want to pick any other universities out there, another university to play football. It's beyond me. If Fit for Cheeseburger sells it to you, then
I
Right.
mean, you must have
You
probably
could
already
sell-
been
you
going
could
to
sell me
Michigan
on-
anyway, right? Because I can't imagine the
Well,
cheeseburgers in Michigan are that good.
I beg your
No.
pardon. Cheeseburger capital of the world. Oh, have you not? No, it's not really. I wouldn't know that.
Maybe it is now. Maybe it is. Maybe we need to dig into
To be honest, to be honest with you could make me do a lot worse for just a Popeyes burger. So maybe there is something there. But it was actually more or less around the COVID dead period,
Yeah, it was, yeah.
which I think is the main crux of it.
Just a disclaimer: when we say COVID dead period, we mean you're not allowed to recruit during that period. It wasn't
when
linked to COVID.
Not when COVID was at its most rife.
No, it was the
period where recruitment was not
time.
allowed.
Not allowed. I don't think they're allowed to like practice or do anything football or athletics related.
Yeah,
before anybody
It really kicks off there. Yeah.
Okay.
something else there. Yeah.
So, but it was one of those things where during those with lockdowns and whatnot, they met up. And so, Gary, I don't know how up on this situation are you at the moment?
Not massively. Obviously, there's talk of banding around of Harbaugh being banned, obviously, for, I'm hearing 4 years as being sort of thrown around as a figure where he'll be banned from college football. Now, obviously, that's kind of, he's done a Pete Carroll. It's kind of irrelevant right now because he's gone to the NFL. So therefore, does he save out his suspension whilst actually being a head coach in the NFL and therefore not really missing out on anything? Probably, most likely, how it's going to work. It strikes me a little bit of Reggie Bush. Everybody was doing it. Somebody needs a scapegoat. We're going to scapegoat Michigan because it won't really make that much difference to Harbaugh himself, unless, of course, they then take it to the next level and kind of go, right, you did that, Jim, but you're no longer here, therefore we'll penalise Michigan and mean you can't recruit for the next 2 years, or something stupid like that. But if they kind of target him and target the head coach, who's now, not even there, but suspend him for 4 years as a shouldn't do that, boys. Look, if you do it, you're very naughty and you'll get suspended for 4 years. Is it a token gesture? Is it a look, we're being really tough on this, but actually we're not, because we're not making a blind bit of difference because he's off head coaching in the NFL anyway.
Yeah. So, on that note, I'm going to read you a little bit of the NCAA statement regarding the punishment dished out this week, which was, as mentioned before, a 1-year suspension and a 4-year show cause order. The NCAA, I'm quoting this from the ESPN article because they've put a couple of the more specific points in rather than me threading myself through the whole article again from the NCAA. The panel noted that Harbaugh's intentional disregard for NCAA legislation and unethical conduct amplified the severity of the case and prompted the panel to classify Harbaugh's case as a level 1 aggravated, with penalties to include a 4-year show cause order. Submitted in the show cause order is a 1-season suspension for Harbaugh. Also in there, it says that he engaged in unethical conduct, failed to promote an atmosphere of compliance, and violated head coach responsibility obligations. So the NCAA doesn't just simply say, yeah, we broke these rules.
They're saying he willfully, broke the rules. Deliberately flaunted the rules with little to no care.
He did it, yeah, with little to no care, and he did it, absolutely did it, didn't seem to mind, and continued to, and was quite flagrant in his way of doing it. I guess kind of calling in his character into question, and his, I don't know, I'm gonna leave it at that. Calling his character into question,
almost his ethics and his culture as well, isn't it? it's an interesting one. But yeah, the words are quite strong in that, strangely. Usually, they do seem to have gone after him, and say that he knew what he was doing. He was willfully being, flaunting the laws or disregarding the stipulations that everybody else was working under. So, yeah, it does sound pretty strong, but it also does sound a bit use a big stick to make an example of somebody, and knowing full well that they can't touch him.
See, there's that, and then, like I say, I'm trying to make this as unbiased, at least from my perspective, as I can. I'm trying to generally read. Give or take. I'm trying. It's more the struggling to read out of that corner and still standing. In that note, then, what I will say is those are some of the quotes from the NCAA. A lot of it is very similar in just kind of the breaking down what it is and why they feel so. And like you say, the language is strong. The language is quite clear in the sense that his character, etc., and his his code of ethics and code of his conduct has been
conduct unbecoming or whatever
flagrantly
it is,
whatnot. So in response, Harbaugh and his lawyer have both kind of issued statements in a response. Where is the quote again? So, hang on, let me just find the quote. Did you have the quote there? Because I can't find the quote here. Sorry, I think I closed the wrong tab.
Harbaugh did say in his Chargers press conference yesterday, I'm stopping the engagement there with commenting, Harbaugh said, but my only hope is that one day college athletics will be about what's best for young men and women who participate in it. That's really all I've got to say about it, which is kind of the line he's had all the way through it as well. He's for all of Harbaugh's ills, he's always tried to make it about the athletes.
Make sure the kids are taken care of or whatever else. What's better for them.
Yeah.
So.
Regardless if it's football, cricket, boxing, wrestling, whatever, and regardless if it's Michigan or not Michigan, he's always been very focused on the young athletes. And people forget that he played football when they weren't literally given anything. So he's seen the both sides of the coin.
So, but that's the way that's worded as well, though. Just again, I want to put this here. That the implications of the NCAA not acting in the best interests of the athletes is a big claim for him to make so publicly. And again, he might be, I guess, trying to. He's not dancing around those words, but he kind of is. It's pretty obvious what you're saying, that the NCAA is not acting in the best interests of athletes.
Yeah.
Well, no, they're not. How could, if they were acting in the best interest of athletes, then Cal and Stanford wouldn't be in the ACC. There's going to be athletes who there's going to be athletes who are playing like tennis and non-varsity games who are going to have to take like commercial airline flights from one coast to the other, play their game, whatever sport it is, get back on that commercial flight
to be back at school for Monday morning or whatever.
Being students. I think there's like one sport I saw, and it was going to take them 4 days to travel to California from one of the Florida schools. And they were going to be there like on campus in California for like 3 hours, do their sport, and then get back again because the flights don't match up for them to be able to get back
go up
to
to Atlanta and across and over and whatever else.
Yeah, so so Harbaugh is correct in that sense, and it's also going to be the same for the Big Ten schools. If you think you're Rutgers and then you're going to have to travel all the way to Oregon, if you're a wrestler or athletic, tennis or something like that, that's granted, Rutgers is right next to New York, but it's still, case in point, there's still not going to be direct flights when you want them.
And the athletics department's sort of budget will be heavily favoured towards the bigger sports. So, you say those smaller sports will probably not get the fancy planes and the fancy whatever. So there'll be a lot of jump on a Greyhound bus and sit on a bus for 12 hours. Some of those.
And there will be sponsorships. So most even NFL teams have a sponsorship with an airline that gets them around the country. And I have seen from a couple of cases that schools will have deals with airlines to get
FSU
players
sponsored by
transported across the
Atlantic
country.
Airlines or whatever. Yeah, that kind of
Exactly.
stuff.
United Airlines, etc. But again, okay, maybe they not be the right one, but is Kennesaw State going to get that if they're travelling such
they're going to get Georgia Airlines.
And like you mentioned there, exactly, but as you mentioned there as well, not just Kennesaw State, but let's go a bit higher up the ladder and let's say a Duke.
Duke will.
Yeah, but
Basketball
will
team,
their
definitely.
tennis program?
Oh no, sorry, no.
This is where
outside of what they call varsity sports, they don't. But Duke's slightly different, considering they're all multi-millionaires and their boosters are huge. But for say an NC State for basketball, men's and women's, football, maybe lacrosse, they'll get
athletics, maybe
chartered flights.
No.
I interviewed one of Alabama. Have got a really good para sports program for different sports, and even their para basketball team, who have won the SEC championship 5 or 6 times on the trot, something ridiculous, still take a bus, and they've got Illinois in their conference. I don't know if they drive to Illinois, but they've got Illinois, Arizona. They don't play in like the historical SEC. They play just different schools that have got para sports programs. So if you think that's the case for Alabama with all singing, all dancing, everything,
sheesh,
it's still still not great.
Yeah. So just to add on to that as well, after Jim Harbaugh's statement, where the NCAA are not looking out for the best for college athletes, Tom Mars of Mars Law Firm, who represents Jim Harbaugh, came out with this statement yesterday.
Peach.
The way I see it from Coach Harbaugh's perspective, today's COI decision is like being in college and getting a letter from your high school saying you've been suspended because you didn't sign the yearbook. If I were in Coach Harbaugh's shoes and had an $80 million contract as head coach of the Chargers, I wouldn't pay any attention to the findings of a kangaroo court which claims to represent the principles of the nation's most flagrant repeat violator of federal antitrust laws. Sass.
There's a lot of sass and salt.
If there's sass, there's sass.
Oh, that's a slap. That's a slapback, isn't it? Wow.
So if you think Jim Harbaugh called the credibility at whatnot of the NCAA into question, then Tom Mars has just tried to rip it to shreds.
He's literally not held back there and just kind of said exactly what it is, isn't he? He's gone out and gone, NCAA, wow, that's a harsh, that's a rejoinder. I mean, if you wanted one out there that's kind of going to be, no, I've got your back, Jim, don't worry, I've got this. That's the statement, isn't it? Just literally ripping into the NCAA, throwing back the whole antitrust privacy the NCAA have lived off of athletes for however long, and now they don't. That's going to run and run, I think. But I did like the comment of, he's gone to, you're blaming him for not signing the yearbook. He's already at college. What's he going to do? That's very much what I thought it was. It's like, oh, we're going to smack you and ban you from being in college. And he's like, I'm in the NFL making millions. Why would I care that I can't go back to college right now?
Very few go to the NFL and come back to college if you're successful.
Yeah, if you're successful, I mean.
He's achieved everything he needed to achieve at Michigan, so it's a moot point him coming back. But his brother John Harbaugh's also taken his side as well. There's been numerous statements, him coming out and basically saying exactly the same, that he's doing it for he's a really good role model for the kids, and he's looking after the kids and stuff.
Well, playing a bit of devil's advocate here, his brother's not exactly going to come out and blast him, is it? So it'd be like, well, I'm going to try and put a bit of, I guess, a humorous twist to it, but it's what's John Harbaugh going to come out and do? Say, when we were 7 years old, we'd have a staring contest and he'd clap in front of my face, so I would blink and he would win. He's a cheat and always has been. That's not what's going to happen. I think so. I think as nice to put it as nicely as possible. I think there are certain people that I don't think have enough. Are unbiased. They're not unbiased enough to kind of say, "Oh well, if such and such has come to his defence, then fair enough." If Ryan Day came to his defence,
Yeah,
maybe I would
or
see
if
that
Nick
with a bit
Saban,
of,
if Nick
crap,
Saban in
even
his
Ryan Day
retirement
said
popped
so.
up and went,
Yeah,
actually, no, he's got a point. It's all good. Then maybe, but his own brother, come on.
it's one of them. Unfortunately, yeah, that's not a person who's unbiased. It's not someone who's going to come out and put into question the reputation of his own brother and family. Sadly, and I get why you bring it up, and I get why he has the support of people rallying around him, and maybe if he genuinely had flagrantly broken these rules and it was all of this, maybe John Harbaugh would have just stayed quiet and just said, "Look, he's dealing with what he's dealing with. Go speak to him about it, etc." I'm saying nothing.
He could have easily sideswiped it by just going, it's to do with it's his issue. He's dealing with it.
Yeah,
I don't want to talk about it.
Which I would get from that perspective, and I'm totally with you there. But again, the credibility of John Harbaugh saying, "Oh well, we're back behind him," I don't think he did it. Isn't. I don't think it'd go very far.
No, this is also John Harbaugh, the running backs coach for Western Michigan. From 1984 to 1987. It's important to remember that was the sideline that Connor Stallions is alleged to be stood on. So there's lots of links between all the schools in Michigan. So probably why Connor Stallions was stood there. His coach said, "Connor, could you go stand on that sideline? My brother was there. They're a really good school." I just want to bring up the NCAA in 2017 though, and how they treated Ole Miss. Ole Miss had to vacate even up to 2019 33 wins because a booster paid at least $13K to recruit, and then $800 to recruit families and help recruits with car loans. All things that are now completely fine. So should Ole Miss get those? Also, Ole Miss, there was some other there were other things as well. But should Ole Miss get some of those 33 wins back?
If they're going back,
Reggie Bush.
I mean, Reggie Bush got his Heisman back.
No, I'm asking this because if in the light of day, if the rules change and Michigan have to vacate any wins or a title, should that be an asterisk that at some point in the future we could be giving it back?
Well, but this, I mentioned Reggie Bush because Reggie Bush was stripped of his Heisman. The rules changed.
Got to be careful there.
And then they came back and said the rules have changed and the way it's different.
That's a tricky one. I think historically he actually gave it up before they stripped him of it. So
Okay, so it was. So no, you're absolutely right. Thank you for calling me out on that one and putting me right. He gave up his Heisman because of everything that was going on around, and it was likely to be stripped off him anyway. But he gave it up. But he was reinstated. It was reinstated because the rules have changed. Now, granted, that was Heisman and the Heisman committee that did that, not the NCAA. But it was a sign that times are changing. So I would actually, just going off of that to stay consistent, yes, give them back. Just to stay consistent with the way things are going. Because it's one of them, why should Reggie Bush get this, but
it will be interesting though, because which wins do they give them back, and which wins, Because if they had to vacate all those wins and they got them all back, would their records have been different? Would they be in bowls? Would they have recruited different? How do you start to then go down that road? Because then suddenly Ole Miss go from a 5-8 season or whatever else, and they go, "Oh, we had 3 wins, so we were a bowl team, and we potentially won that." And
well, from memory, Ole Miss actually didn't take part in bowl games for a ridiculous amount of time as like a self-imposed punishment. But one of the wins that was taken off them was a win over Alabama, which means Alabama had one loss taken off of their loss total for history. So it depends if you pay attention to these things or not.
And let's be honest,
whether you believe that the NCAA and the NCAA do favour some schools over others, and That's all I'm going to say, because I'm going to sound like a better Michigan fan, and I'm quite happy to do that on social media on my own.
Well, we know one thing about Bama fans is they don't give a piss about nothing but the Tide. So
say how you feel.
That's
mate.
my
say how you
favourite
feel
saying.
about Alabama.
Well, that's my favourite saying in all of college sports is I don't give a piss about nothing but the Tide. Brilliant.
Roll Tide, Willie.
But one thing I think is clear here, to kind of get back onto, thing is, the NCAA have, with their wording, have gone after Jim Harbaugh's code of ethics, his conduct, his character, his credibility, etc. Harbaugh and his lawyer have gone after the NCAA's credibility and their conduct and how they conduct and how they go about their business. Are we seeing a point now where, right, he's been given the suspension, he's been given the show cause order, Harbaugh's had his say, the NCAA have now had their say and done the thing where it looks like they've given out the punishment, but have they really given out a punishment because he'll be in LA? Is this the end of it? Is this a bit where they both, Jim Harbaugh goes, well, bugger off, I'm in LA now, leave, I'm done. And do the NCAA say, well, there you go, see you later?
Do the NCAA sort of go, look at us, we postured, we did this, we slapped him with the big whatevers. So really, in the end, it's a no-win situation for anybody, and leave it at that. Or is this almost, I guess where you're going with that is this the camel that breaks the back of the NCAA? Will others come out of the woodwork and start going, hang on a minute?
It's like when you're in school, and I mean, no, this is no disrespect to anybody who works in schools listening to this. I just can't think. It's Friday night. I can't think of a better analogy. It's like when you're in school, and all of the teams are the kids, and the TV networks are the teacher, and the teaching assistant tells you to do something, which would be the NCAA, and all of the kids in this analogy tell the teaching assistant, "No, I'm good." And then the TV networks where the teachers say something and all the kids go, yeah, okay, can I have my lunch earlier though? And the TV networks go, yeah, sure. So the analogy is the NCAA literally have no real authority over anything that happens in college sports now, especially in football, really. Like, they couldn't stop the realignment. They'll give Michigan a punishment. We all know they won the title. We all saw it. They'll take some wins away. Whoop-de-doo. They're going to punish Jim Harbaugh, who's in the NFL and probably not going to come back because he wants to win a Super Bowl so he can outdo his dad and his brother. That's the end of it. Like, I don't quite know what else the NCAA are trying to achieve here. They're just making themselves look petty in all forms. And I'm not just saying that because it's Michigan. They've literally got no authority really over any school in any, like, men's basketball, football, women's basketball, tiddlywinks. Like, I'm not being funny, but do what you want. Like this, the TV companies, as I said last week, run the sports.
Do they have to be seen doing something though? Is doing something that's ineffective worse than doing nothing? And I ask that from the perspective of, I even made the joke yesterday, and it was actually told to me, and I will give a shout out to Old Dominion Jack on Twitter, who's been a long-standing friend of mine, Notre Dame fan, funnily enough.
With the name of Old Dominion
Lions
Jack?
fan.
Old Dominion.
Yes, there's a reason behind that, but it's his name on Twitter anyway. It's not his actual. I don't think it's actually his real name. But he actually kind of, I guess, put an argument to me. So I tried to make the humorous statement of, well, I'm going to go text my girlfriend from when I was 15 and say, right, we're on a break. Because if that's what we're doing, getting in touch with our exes and telling them we're on a break, then where do we stand on this? Like, what's the bloody point? But another thing they said is, if you imagine a criminal leaves the country, when they come back, if they come back, and I know we say the likelihood of him coming back is quite minuscule, but if a felon leaves the country, you have to have that threat there. You have to have that whole, you are not safe when you come back here at the moment. They have to be shown to be doing something and putting something out there. So I get, like I say, my question to you is doing something that feels like nothing worse than doing nothing?
I suppose they have to be seen to be doing something, but they're just dragging it out. They let the season play out last year and didn't really do anything then. They had their opportunity at the start of the season to actually impose a proper punishment. They didn't do it. They had their opportunity towards the end of the season with the Connor Stallion stuff to impose a proper punishment. They didn't do it. The boat sailed. The tide is out. No point crying over spilled milk, however you want to phrase it. They had their opportunity and they didn't have the cojones to do it. So they're now doing something after the horse has bolted from the stable. However you want to address it, it's fruitless now, it's pointless. And it would be the same regardless if it was Michigan, Ohio State, any team. It's pointless. The only way that there's going to be any punishment is going to be from internally at Michigan. And Michigan haven't done that. Jim Harbaugh took a suspension. So they're not going to fire Sharon Moore. They're not going to do anything to the football program because it's an entire set of new players, basically. It's a new coaching staff. So what else? What do people want? I don't quite understand what they're expecting to get out of this. Like, it's just,
out of this one,
yeah.
I get you. Out of that, I get you. Out of the recruiting violations. But like I say, the stuff that's come out this week of Sharon Moore being involved with Connor Stallions and deleting text messages and all that sort of stuff, would that then put Sharon Moore's credibility into question? And if I guess it's one of those weird ones because, like I say, the book, according to the NCAA and the rules, the book stops with the head coach. If the team are messing up, the head coach is the one that gets it. It'd be a bit like, in a football game, if your left back runs over and punches a right winger, the captain is the one that's responsible, and the captain gets the yellow card or the captain gets the whatever, because it's ultimately him who's not been able to control his team and his players. Probably a bad analogy, but you know where I'm going with it anyway. The buck stops with the head coach.
Yeah.
At that time, Jim Harbaugh was the head coach. But with Sharon Moore's involvement, does that skip Sharon Moore and go straight onto Harbaugh? Or do you leave that with Sharon Moore, and now that he's the head coach, start to begin to make an example out of Sharon Moore? Because like I say, the idea is that not just him, but he was majorly involved with the sign steal.
My question would be, and it's the question I've asked numerous occasions and on a lot of the Facebook groups that I've seen, Michigan and college football and otherwise, what was in the text messages? Oh, we don't know, they've been deleted. So, no proof. So, it does, I said this the other day and I did tag you with a Fletch, it does feel like we're living rent-free in every other school's head.
Yeah.
It does feel.
And I quite like that.
It does feel like that. It does feel a little like. Actually, that there are lots of other teams out there. Why is everyone so fixated on, beating on?
It does feel very much like, the New England Patriots, and the Celtics and the Astros. It does feel like that college football's only really doing well when Michigan is in the headlines, and I feel like that's the case in point, right? So here. I've decided I'm going to take up the role of just a person that's just going to get all the hate on the podcast for just saying stupid things. But yeah, that's what it does. It does feel like the Tom Brady sort of thing, being a Michigan fan right now, where it's like everyone just wants to hate on you for whatever reason,
jealousy, whatever it is. Yeah, it does seem.
I don't need to tell Gary. Gary's very aware. You know what football club I support as well. And I'm quite surprised that this week Chapman of Heard All the Line was the first to bring up the fact that I'm a Michigan and a Manchester City Football Club fan. And that right now is not the greatest. It's not been my favourite off-season in terms of off-field insight. It's just not been my favourite. So, yeah, both barrels, my friend. both barrels. I'm just waiting for the Lions
I
to get done
was
for
going to
something.
say,
I really am.
you get the whole triumvirate of the Lions. Well, hang on, the Lions got done for gambling already, didn't they?
Why not?
They got done for gambling last season, wasn't it?
That was a year ago.
But
I'm talking about now.
that's when Michigan was stealing signs, and that's when Man City were flagrantly just ignoring the fair play rules. So,
well, that was in like all them are from like 2011 to 2016.
high school then, so pointless going back and retrospectively. Oh, it sounds exactly like what we're just talking about.
Yeah, so I'm just waiting for like when I went to university to find out that like when I went to university, all of the degrees that were handed out were fraudulent degrees, and no one's actually really earned one. And then I just find out, what's the point anymore? So,
I would like to add, as quite a long-term Michigan fan, it's taken until 3 years ago for us to win our first game against Ohio State and for us to be any way, shape decent. So I would just like to add that actually, can I just have 3 years of happiness before you take it all away from me?
Ripping on me already because
football-wise anyway. Basketball, we're back on that path to greatness. But yeah, it does feel like we've been bad for so many years, and then we've become good, and it's like, no, you can't be good
in that short space
of time. And then it just feels like if they chuck enough mud at us, something's going to stick. That's what as a long-term fan, that's what it feels like.
So, I think where I kind of want to get to it, we've kind of gone through some of the facts, we've gone through some of the things, and we've been able to give our opinions. I do apologise sincerely if my wording hasn't been great. Again, I'm not in the greatest shape of all time, particularly with my brain and whatnot. So if anyone has continued to get through this without my stumbling over my words, etc., thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. Any final things, I guess, that you want to say, both of you gentlemen, on, I guess, this situation, what this means? I guess, actually, a good question is, what does this mean going forward for the NCAA? It's been mentioned, this won't be the straw that breaks the camel's back, but what does this mean going forward for the NCAA?
Nothing at all. I don't think it makes
them. They'll just wait for another scandal.
They'll just wait for the next news cycle to come along, and this will get forgotten about. There won't be
their reputation is already in shatters.
Everyone knows the reputation of the NCAA, and as Ed says, they've got no power. They know that as soon as the TV companies and the networks turn around and say do this, they'll be like, oh, okay then. So this is them postulating, going, oh, look at us, we still have power to do stuff and ban people and suspend people, but we really don't, because let's be honest, if Harbaugh was still at Michigan and they tried to do this, and the network came around and went, wait, Michigan are pretty good. There's a whole sort of, these guys are having a great rivalry. Everyone's watching, and you now want to come along and do that. Do you want to maybe rethink that, guys, so that we don't lose out on millions and millions of TV viewers? Maybe just give him a slap on the wrist and a fine. That would definitely happen if he was still in college. I think this is just a posture type thing.
People watch Michigan, Alabama, Tennessee, FSU, your rivals, Ohio State, because they either want to see you win because you're a fan of that team, or because they want to see you lose so they can go on socials and let rip. So I fully agree with what Gary said. That's exactly what would have happened. And it was the same with Kansas as well. They did a long investigation into Kansas basketball, and then nothing even happened. Like they vacated one win, and it wasn't even from the championship yet. It was like, it's toothless. It doesn't actually mean anything until they hand control of these punishments to the TV networks, which won't happen. It would just be the continuous cycle of nothing. It would just be muted punishments.
Are we one more step closer to the football, particularly, again, breaking off? I'm not saying this is the thing that is going to be, pulling one more. But I would imagine, again, and I want you to think of this in this way, I guess. If Michigan want to stand on that they've done nothing wrong, right? And it's the way I kind of explain this to, again, regarding things like Manchester City and all that sort of stuff. The club stands on a position of we've done nothing wrong. End of story.
115 times. But
What? But if you believe that you've done nothing wrong, and that you would believe that this is a hit, and what you've done is thrown shit at the wall to see what sticks, but this is essentially a hit attempt on your program, on your club, on your whatever. Why on earth are you going to spend 10 more minutes being under this? Why are you there is no situation in which you're going to want to stay there and be under this body, under this thing. This is the thing where you turn around and say, right, well, we're out, we're done. I've had enough. Let's go.
Yeah.
I think Michigan may stand there, and this is a bold claim I think I'm making. But the next time the Big Ten meet up, the next time they do a couple other things, Michigan might be the ones to stand there, and they might even go. I reckon they could go up to FSU and Clemson and say, "Do you want to stand with us?" And say, "Let's go do it.
Let's go independent.
Do you want to stand and pound the table to say, let's go,
get out from under the NCAA. Let's go actually change things and be independent, or run it ourselves, or whatever else."
You find schools that are disgruntled and angry, Clemson and FSU being the two prime examples of the other two that are disgruntled and angry, particularly with the way the NCAA is at the moment, and with the way their situation, because of the way the NCAA is, and because of the conference that they're in, and you say, well, we're no longer, we're done with the NCAA. The NCAA is dead to us. Do you start trying to get them on board and starting to pound the table and going up to Ohio State and going up to Alabama and Georgia and Texas and whatnot and saying,
do you want a bigger slice of the pie, boys? And that's what it'll be, won't it? Because you'll go separate, they'll go independent, and they'll...
I'm not saying that will happen, by the way. I'm just saying,
to happen.
Is that a possibility?
I think it is going to happen at some point.
I think it'll happen. They'll keep this Power Four will stay the way they are. They'll split from the NCAA, which I think the NCAA would be quite happy about because they don't make much money from football. Excuse me. They make most of their money from March Madness and everything that's around that. So I think they'd be happy, and then you'd see the other, I don't want to say smaller sports, but you'd see the other sports go back to their geographical kind of align, and then football would go do its own thing. And you would have a Power Five who are separate from the NCAA. Then you'd have the Group of Five and FCS that maybe still come under the NCAA, or they would be a separate entity as well. So I think it's probably heading in that direction. And I think the NCAA would be more than happy with that because they won't have to keep doing this.
Yeah.
It can't be good for them, really, to continuously be exposing themselves as having no power.
Yeah, that's the thing. You keep doing that. You keep putting yourself out there and keep exposing the fact that you are literally a toothless dragon who's got no bite and can't do anything. Then people are eventually going to be like, well, you're just irrelevant now, aren't you? So they can't keep putting themselves in the shop window and then be shown to be, as you say, just pointless and have no power, no rights, no anything, because eventually people will just stop listening.
Like I say, I'm not necessarily taking the position that Michigan have done nothing wrong. Like, I'm not on this podcast taking the position that Manchester City have done nothing wrong, because obviously we've just got that many haters. After your comment before, Egg, that's going to bring all of the haters into the comments, I'm now going to get clipped, basically just making that claim, aren't I? And a hit's got to get put on us, innit? So let me get out there now and just say, I'm not making that claim, I'm just asking the question.
I am 100% making that claim. This wouldn't be the first time I've gone on a podcast and said something stupid. No, nice. The last. And you either double down on these things or you wimp out and say you didn't mean it. And I'm gonna double down. Michigan have done nothing. I wish to put this on record, and I'm gonna look into the camera and say this: Michigan have done nothing wrong. Manchester City definitely have. Throw the book at them. Michigan, no. As a proud Bolton Wanderers fan, I got great joy out of saying that.
I lived in Bolton for 3 years. Say what you want, it's fine. I pity you.
On the upside, though, we are incredibly close to week 0, and I'm looking at the schedule for week 0, and I'm getting really excited by one game, and I'm going to be the only person in the UK getting excited.
Yeah, you're talking about the one in Vegas, aren't you?
I'm getting really excited for Montana State against New Mexico.
Okay. Why?
I've just seen SMU and Nevada as well. Actually, that's quite a good one. I'm looking forward to that because Montana State are a very good FSC team, and New Mexico are also a very good Power 5 team. So it'd be very interesting to see how those two are going to fare this season, because college football is only as healthy as the small guys.
Interesting. Fletch and I obviously are slightly probably more focused on a different game.
And also I picked SMU also to win the ACC, so hopefully they can beat
That
Nevada.
would be a great start for you.
So, yeah.
Saying that, I'm thinking, I chose the Sentinel. This could be an interesting.
I think that's the only game. We've got Northern Alabama at Southeast Missouri State as well that week. And obviously you guys are up in Dublin. Having a great time.
And then I thought it was a Monday night game. Isn't that the Vegas game? Late. It's still classed as week 0, but it's USC against USC LSU on the.
No.
I get confused. I thought that was week 0.
No, that's week 1. So week 0 is, and then Thursday the 29th, there's North Carolina at Minnesota, North Dakota State at Colorado, which I'm also really excited about, Sacramento State at San Jose State. Friday is TCU at Stanford, and then we are into proper week 1. Clemson, Georgia is on that week.
That's right. Why did I think the Vegas game was week 0? Weird. Anyway, good.
I'm also enjoying some of the names as well for some of the games. Oh, the Vegas Kickoff Classic, the LSU versus USC. Yeah, that's on Sunday, September the 1st. It's 7:30 US time, so that's
1 a.m. over here. 7:30 Eastern time.
Something a.m. Monday morning.
Eastern. So yeah, 11:30 kickoff. So. No, 12:30.
And then Monday, September the 2nd, Boston College play Florida State. Let's go Eagles. Lovely university, Boston College. I've been visited it. It's very nice.
Yeah, so I'm going to say I've got these on GMT. So yeah, USC LSU is 12:30 in the morning. And Boston College, Florida State is 12:30 in the morning.
Not stay up for that one.
You wimp.
No, I stay up for 2 college teams, and neither of them.
No, I mean I might stay up because it's the Seminoles, and I might stay up. But Monday night into Tuesday,
we all know that we're all rushing high as soon as the game finishes from Florida State, Georgia Tech. We're all running to the airport so we can get on a plane and get home. And I'm going to try and get my quickies through Manchester as badly as I can when I get off the plane, just so I can get home and watch SMU Nevada. Because after 3 hours sleep and a day around Ireland, all I want to do is watch SMU at Nevada. That's all
the only thing.
Not Montana State.
Well, by the sound of it, I might have to. Go Montana State, New Mexico now. But I'm even looking at that, thinking I might be able to watch Montana State, New Mexico at the airport, waiting for my flight, which is at midnight.
When you got me on this pod, see, I told you that I was going to lead you off the path I've travelled, and that's exactly what
You're going to throw these ones in.
Like
Montana
some of these
State and New Mexico would have probably overlooked that completely. Totally would have normally overlooked that one. Although I might want to watch. I might stick my head into the Delaware State at Hawaii just because Coach Ryan Boggs is coaching there, isn't he? So.
Oh, he does, doesn't he? Yes, he does.
And we love Jeff over here, so you know.
Okay.
And I'd only be getting home then because my flight doesn't land until 1 a.m. in the morning. Then it's like a drive back from Luton, so you know, that'd be fine. Yeah.
Bugger that. Bugger going to Luton.
But there we go. That's week 0.
The whole issue I have with that is Luton, so...
Yeah, but it's either that or or bloody South End.
Gents, I'm aware of the time that we've been recording, and I'm aware of the time it is in the evening, and all we're doing now is talking about week 0, which we're going to have an opportunity to do.
Getting ahead of ourselves. I think we've covered the Michigan side of things. I think we've covered the the ins and outs and the nuances of what it means, obviously. Well, or what it in the end, in effect, doesn't actually
Exactly.
mean at all.
So, with that in mind, next week, when we hopefully have Nick and Sam back, we're going to start going through some Heisman predictions. We'll go through some of the major player award predictions. A lot of those have kind of the preseason versions have been released so far over the last week or so, and we'll be looking at just some players you're going to need to watch and look out for this season. Mainly, probably as far as the first round of the draft goes, and hopefully some. Especially Sam definitely will have some out there ones that we need to keep an eye on, which is going to be great. That was going to be this week, but when Sam couldn't be available, we made sure to push it back for next week because he is absolutely fantastic at that. So next week we will be covering individual players to look out for, and then after that we go on to our new schedule where we'll record on the Wednesday night and we will do the week 0. We will get the week 0 prep in, and we will talk a lot about Florida State and Georgia Tech,
and
but
Dublin.
I'm sure Ed will also get us talking about Delaware State and Hawaii.
Yeah, I can do, yeah. I've also got one tradition I want to keep going throughout the season as well, and that is don't sleep on Rutgers.
Don't sleep on Rutgers.
Don't sleep on Rutgers.
I think they're going to cause a few eyebrow raisers, Rutgers. I've got a feeling there's a little bit of something brewing there.
Yep. That's all I've got to say for this week anyway. I've said my piece there.
No problem. Well, gents, have a lovely evening, and I will see you next week.
Take it easy.
Take it easy.